The federal government has approved Nigeria's startup bill towards enhancing innovation in the tech industry. Minister of Communications and Digital Economy, Professor Isa Ali Ibrahim Pantami, announced this at a media briefing after the Federal Executive Council meeting.
On the 1st of January 2021, President Muhammadu Buhari delivered a New Year address where he applauded the entrepreneurial spirit of young Nigerians and promised to provide executive support, while also lobbying for legislative support to ensure the Nigerian youths succeed. His speech sparked a series of engagement between the presidency and the private sector, particularly the tech ecosystem. The aim was to create a policy environment that would support the growth of the tech industry and for Nigerians to dominate the African market. After several weeks of robust engagement and high-level interaction between both parties, a Nigeria startup bill was conceptualized. This bill became the baby of the presidency with significant input from Nigeria's tech ecosystem. Oswald Osaretin Guobadia,
the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Digital Transformation,
talks about how this all began and what this bill seeks to achieve.
Since Mr. President's speech, months of work has been put in by members of the presidency, leaders in tech industry and several other stakeholders. One thing we've come to realize is this: we cannot deny the need for collaboration and engagement at all levels. We call this the Big Tent approach, where everyone from the presidency, honorable ministers, wider government agencies, venture capital investors, media organizations, law firms, and academia are playing a clearly defined role towards a shared goal. If not for this, the NSB will probably still be in deliberation stage. Nigeria Startup Bill, or as we like to call it, the NSB. In its simplest meaning, the NSB is a set of laws that will guide the activities of startups, both the ones that exist now and the ones you will build. The bill is championed by the presidency and the members of the Nigeria tech ecosystem. The tech sector is becoming the lifeblood of the Nigerian economy. Gone are the days where crude oil was our only economic priority. But far from its economic impact, Nigerian tech is retelling our story to the world. And this is the story of potential, positivity, impact, and excellence. This means that the tech sector matters and must be fiercely supported and protected.
Davidson Oturu, a partner at Aelex, a leading law firm in Lagos, was part of the team that drafted the startup bill. Given his experience in fintech, investments, capital markets, and intellectual property, he highlights a few cardinal points from this bill.
I would say that one of the novel provisions of the Nigerian Startup Bill relates to the labeling of startups. Now, we know that there are thousands of companies in Nigeria that identify as startups, but what the bill has introduced is a system and process whereby companies that meet certain criteria are then labeled under the Act and are registered with the secretariat that has been set up. Now, those labeled startups will be qualified to enjoy certain incentives and grants that are provided for under the law. So, incentives that deal with tax, incentives that deal with funding and investments, startups that qualify under that labeling process will be entitled to enjoy those incentives and protection. Do note that there are general incentives and protection that applies to startups generally now, whether labeled or unlabeled. But those labeled startups will go into some sort of incubation process, that will give them a level of protection and enhancement and possibly lead to them scaling quickly. And I think this is one of the novel provisions that have been introduced in the Nigerian Startup Bill.
Mr. Oturu talks about the challenges of funding that startups face and how this bill can help mitigate those challenges.
Startups consistently face challenges when it comes to funding. After they've exhausted their resources from what you call the 3Fs, family, friends, and founders, they then either scale or drop out of the game. But what the Nigerian Startup Bill has introduced is a funding mechanism through the Startup Investment Seed Fund, which is to be managed by the Nigeria Sovereign Investment Authority. Now, this fund is targeted at early stage startups and is to provide them with financing that can help them through those challenges that they will typically face during that period where they're trying to scale. Now, it would also provide relief for accelerators, incubators, and hubs that are providing services and supporting startups, particularly in those their early stage. Do note that this funding would only apply to startups that have been labeled under the Act. So it will then fall on the startups, to seek how they can qualify to come under this program and be able to enjoy this incentive. But I think it's an exciting idea and arguably one of the most important introductions into the Nigerian Startup Bill.
Another challenge that this bill promises to mitigate is the constant running that startups have with regulators. Mr. Oturu explains it further.
A major challenge that startups face in Nigeria is dealing with regulators. From one issue to the other, they are consistently complaining about how the regulators don't just get them. Now, I would say one of the major innovations that has been introduced in the Nigerian Startup Bill is the establishment of a startup support and engagement portal, which is to serve as a platform through which startups can conduct different registration processes with the relevant ministries, departments, and agencies. And they can also lay complaints, make their applications, and interact with the regulators in a way that has not been seen before. Through that startup portal as well, the startups are granted access to tools and resources. They can go into contracts or agreements with the federal government dealing with public procurement or other engagement processes. They also foster information exchange between various stakeholders in the Nigerian ecosystem through that portal. And that portal will also give them the opportunity to have access to finance, information, innovation, and the global market. So I would say that the introduction of the startup portal is a major milestone and a game changer in the startup ecosystem.
The Startup Bill provides for an online community where many of the issues that startups face is addressed in a unique portal. This feature excites many of those who work in the civil society, the private sector, and of course those who work in academia.
Hi, my name is Jude Farami, CEO at Republic Craft. I am excited about the startup portal that the startup bill is going to be introducing. Of all the other initiatives that the startup bill is bringing to the table, if you look at the draft of the bill, you begin to see that that portal brings together almost all of the issues that startups face and startup founders face. So we have the Corporate Affairs Commission being able to use that portal to solve problems for startups when it comes to registration, when it comes to trades and patents and IP. The portal also serves a useful purpose in that respect. And I am excited that this one-stop online space will be useful for engagement with all the different agencies that startups in different sectors of the economy can have to, or usually have to, work with. I think much more importantly, and I think this bears mentioning, is that the startup bill is also going to usher in the kind of spirit of legislation that we need to be able to continue to build upon innovation in our country. There are still lots of laws that we need to amend and introduce. The startup bill will usher in these kinds of legislation, which is a benefit to our ecosystem overall. And I'm excited about that. In the way that this startup bill is John the Baptist to there's so many other forward-looking legislations that drive innovation in our country. Without innovation, our economy will not grow. And I'm happy that this effort is going to be ushering in much more innovation and much more prosperity.
My favorite part of the Nigerian startup bill will have to be the provisions that speak to the creation of innovation hubs and innovation or digital technology parks. I find these provisions very interesting and very, I find them to be a very valid inclusion, especially because innovation hubs or accelerators are typically driven in Nigeria at the moment by the private sector. But with these provisions, it gives, I will say, the opportunity for collaboration between states and private sector to create these hubs, and it will primarily be driven by the startup secretariat. So it just shows that there's going to be quite a lot of collaboration between the government and the private sector in creating hubs and parks, and I will say like a home for different startups.
That is Funke Oyedele, the founder of DIY Law Technologies Limited, a legal technology company focused on providing automated, accessible, and affordable legal services to Nigerian-based entrepreneurs.
What makes it also interesting for me is the fact that there's some, I will say, states or areas in certain states that are known to be like the startup capital. But with this, there'll be a good geographical dispersal of startup hubs and startup zones and parks and just places where many startups can call their home, and it wouldn't be peculiar to a certain state or a certain area of a state. This also feeds into the provisions of the Nigerian Startup Bill that allow startups to enjoy incentives if they set up in free trade zones. This is something that I don't think currently exists, and so it allows for startups to go into free trade zones to set up as well as enjoy the incentives that are provided by these free trade zones. So I will say that those are the provisions that really excite me, as they definitely will be giving a lot of wind to the wings of startups and giving them a lot of opportunity to grow.
Most of our youth, they don't know about the Nigerian Startup Bill. That's why they create this rally in order our younger youths to know that the bill is created for them. And if they don't know about the bill, now they are here about it and they know it. They are ready to support the. As you can see, we just gather our younger youths. They don't know about the rally. It's just yesterday, most of them that it's just yesterday that they have been informed. And because they know that the bill is for them, that they give us 100% cooperation to come and attend the rally. The bill is targeted the youths.
The potential of Nigeria's digital economy cannot be overemphasized. It is why the startup bill is critical, as this will be the difference between a trapped generation or a liberated one. Tomiwa Aladekomo, the CEO of Big Cabal Media, makes a strong case for Nigeria's digital economy and the need for a bill that ensures unlimited prosperity for that sector.
So Nigeria's digital economy is one of the fastest growing and most important aspects of the economy. In an economy where we haven't done the diversification that we need to in terms of infrastructure, in terms of physical infrastructure, in terms of other industries, it's one of those industries that's growing really, really quickly without a lot of government support, without a lot of sort of fundamental infrastructure support. It's also one of the sectors that's creating high value jobs for young people. And so if you see people who come into the tech industry who are able to find their way well, the kind of salaries that they can command very quickly are hard to compare with many other aspects of the economy. And so that makes it a really important economy, an important industry for an economy like ours, which has lots of young people coming out of universities, coming out of secondary schools without being able to find jobs, much less great paying jobs. And so it's a critical industry for hope and for the future. I think what's also fantastic about it is it's one of those industries that connects us with the global economy. And so you're creating goods and services for people all over the world to consume. It generates FX for us as a country because you can create products that are serving sort of international clients. And so across the board, the technology industry, the digital industry are super, super important for us as a country. Now, what the NSB aims to do is to create an environment where we can have lots more companies doing really, really sort of productive technology, innovation-driven businesses, where investors can come in more readily, where even sort of existing funds in Nigeria can be directed towards innovation-driven businesses. Because these businesses scale so quickly, they can affect the economy dramatically, they can hire lots of people, they can generate lots of revenue for Nigeria. And so if we're able to encourage more of those businesses, if we're able to create an environment in which they can really thrive through the Nigerian Startup Bill, then we can have really solid impact on the economy. We can have another industry that very quickly can start to rival sort of oil and gas, telco, and banking in terms of the number of people that it employs, in terms of the amount of revenue it gives the country, in terms of the push that it gives to our economy. And ultimately, these businesses also enable other businesses. And so you see with, say, fintech, which has been the latest and biggest wave, what's great about the current wave of fintech businesses is that they're going to enable all other aspects of the economy to be more productive. Because you can now collect money from anyone as a merchant or as a healthcare provider, your healthcare becomes more productive, your retailers become more productive, your various other aspects of the economy become more productive.
After several months of hard work, collaboration and drafting, the Minister of Communications and Digital Economy, Dr. Issa Pantami, has now assured the tech community that the bill is now before the Federal Executive Council, the highest decision-making body of the executive arm of the federal government.
Dr. Pantami has continued to champion this bill in every fora or every gathering that he represents his ministry. At the recent event in Lagos at the Art for Technology Summit, Dr. Pantami talks about the wonderful benefits of this bill, should it eventually get passed by the National Assembly.
This Nigeria Startup Bill, in which I believe many startups, many ICT hubs in the country, private sector, and many more participated in conceptualizing the idea and coming up with the startup bill. There are so many provisions in that bill that will support and make our startup very successful in Nigeria. As it is today, Nigeria attracts the highest venture capitals in Africa, followed by South Africa, then Egypt, then Kenya. And I believe with Nigeria's startup bill, it will not only make us fast, but it will produce a gap between the first position and the second position, in which most probably more than 20 countries can be accommodated in between. Startup is key to economic development globally.
There is little doubt that this bill will change the entire tech ecosystem for good. It will create new opportunities, scale several businesses, attract unbelievable funding, and position Nigeria to become the leading destination for tech investments in Africa. The potential for job creation is also another significant benefit of this bill, especially at a time where young Nigerians are struggling to earn a decent living. A journey which began from a signal in the President's New Year's speech has now led to arguably the most important collaboration between the Presidency and the private sector since the turn of the First Republic. Young people can now dream of building unicorns because there now exists a legal framework that will see to the actualization of those dreams.
Although Dr. Pantami has fulfilled his promise of getting the bill to the Federal Executive Council, and getting the approval of the Federal Executive Council, there is still ground to be covered. The journey of moving the startup bill to an act has only just begun. Already, the Speaker of the Federal House of Representatives, Honorable Femi Gbajabiamila, has shown a lot of interest in the bill. The ball is now in the Assembly's court to join the executive and the tech ecosystem to make history. My name is Ayodele Adio, and thank you for listening.